right. Beyond that, we just ask that you keep muted this whole time. And we would also like to take a moment to thank our EFA staff board and our Curatorial Advisory Council, who are listed there, as well as our fiscal sponsors, the Andy Warhol Foundation for Cultural Arts, Lower Manhattan Council of Cultural, NYC Cultural Affairs, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Stavros Nikos Foundation, and the New York Foundation for the Arts. And with that, I will hand this over to my colleague, Dannielle Tegeder, who is our program director for EFA Project Space.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for bearing with us with a couple of technical issues, and we have an incredible turnout today. So I just want to take a moment to thank you all for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, and welcome you all here virtually to EFA Project Space. We were not expecting to be doing a virtual opening, and we are still hoping to do some in-person events later on in the run of the exhibition, probably more toward the closing. We're remaining hopeful that that will be possible. And we also will have a full slate of online programming, virtual events happening, as well as things popping up in the gallery on Thursdays. So check out the website for more information about that. I should back up for a minute. I am Dannielle Tegeder. I'm the program director for EFA Project Space, and it's my honor and my pleasure to be here with you today. I am in the on the third floor of EFA Center, just above our gallery, where Dannielle Tegeder and Sharmistha, who you'll hear from in a moment, as well as my colleague Judy Guerra, who you already just did hear from, are located, and they'll be walking you through this fabulous exhibition. We are so happy to be bringing Hilma's Ghost, the collective, into Project Space. This was a long process of developing the exhibition that really, I think, initiated before the pandemic with our last open call for curatorial proposals on the theme of bright futures, and has kind of morphed and transmogrified over the 2 years that we've been talking with Dannielle, and then also with Sharmistha more recently around what painting means in the present moment. And we're going to have a little conversation with them about that in just a few minutes, as well as hopefully hear from some of the artists in the show. Thank you to all of the artists who are joining us here today virtually as well. We are really excited and pleased to have your work in the show and have you here with us today to mark this, this occasion as best we can. I did want to also mention that so Project Space does have an annual open call for curatorial proposals and artist projects, and we'll be launching our next round, opening it up for proposals from curators, artists, arts programmers, and others starting this weekend. So it should be online on January 15th, and the application period will be open until February 15th. So if you have something that you would like to bring to Project Space, keep an eye out for that. Check our website. We'll be sending out, social media around that this week as well. So without further ado, I want to cede the floor and mute myself and introduce the two members of the Hilma's Ghost Collective who have organized this beautiful show today. So Dannielle and Sharmistha, are you here? I hope they are.
Yes, we are. You're here.
We're right here.
Okay, good to see you. Hi, there you are.
We're a ghost, but sometimes we disappear.
Yeah, we're ephemeral.
Take it away, Hilma's Ghost. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to see so many great faces, especially our artists that are in the show. Of course, it's unexpected that we're on Zoom, but those of you who've been following Hilma's Ghost, we have been virtual the whole time, and our collective was really born out of the pandemic. And I think the silver lining really is just that, we have some people here from everywhere, all over the world, including a few of our artists. So we're so excited. We finished installing the show last night, and we're going to actually follow our usual Hilma's Ghost programming, where we invoke Hilma's spirit. We have a nice way of closing. We're going to hear from some of the artists. We'll talk about the curatorial process. Before we do that, I want to just give a very big thank you to Dylan Gauthier and Judy Guerra, who's worked the closest many iterations over 2 years. And of course, we've been on the wildest ride ever, curatorially and as artists. Many good things coming out of that too. But just a very big thank you. And also to the Elizabeth Foundation and to the Elizabeth Foundation staff, including Bill Carroll, Natalia Nakazawa, thank you. They've really hosted amazing shows here and really do so much for so many artists, and deeply appreciated. Couple other people to thank. We have so many galleries who worked with us on this. DC Moore, Carrie Seacrest Gallery in Chicago, Canada, David Nolan Gallery, Miles McHenry. Thank you for lending your work and helping to facilitate all of that. The deepest thank you goes to our absolutely incredible artists that we have. We have 25 artists in the show, and every single piece is stunning, and it's just been such a privilege to be in here with all the work and installing it. And I really feel like, just really Hilma's spirit is here with us in community. The deepest thank you goes to Hilma. And our namesake. So with that, we usually actually invoke Hilma's spirit through an incantation. We actually wrote a letter for this show, and those of us who've been with our programming, we work with Sarah Potter, who's someone else I want to say a big shout out to.
She's here, so hello, Sarah.
Wonderful witch who's in her ancient wisdom has guided us. So Sarah worked with us during the installation, creating a sigil for us. She did a great sigil making workshop that's on our website, by the way. And we actually wrote a letter to Hilma. So instead of the incantation, I'm going to invoke Hilma's spirit.
And this letter was written when we were invoking Hilma to curate the show and asking for her guidance. As you know, we did this through ritual divination, laying out the works, which is of course quite unconventional, and we allowed the cards, our tarot cards, to determine those placements. And we will talk about that a little bit more. But first we will, we're having a problem lighting the candle. Regular stuff.
So, dear Hilma, we invoke your spirit today to bless this exhibition, Cosmic Geometries, the curators, artists, EFA staff, and our lovely witch, Sarah Potter. We are asking for divine placement for all of these works. Please help us make magical and harmonious relationships. Please help facilitate cosmic and transformative connections to the public and make visible all the ways in which we are connected to one another. Please guide in opening new pathways where we belong and where we will be of service. We seek to communicate through press, exhibitions, the deepening of relationships with artists in the exhibition and beyond, and reveal our purpose through opportunities and places to be of assistance to you, our women artists ancestors, past. Bless this show, thank you for all of your divine guidance. Always, Hilma's Ghost.
So we are Hilma's Ghost. This is Dannielle Tegeder. I don't know if you said that.
Yeah, I'm Dannielle Tegeder.
And I'm Sharmistha. We're both artists, and why this particular, our first curated show together is quite symbolic for us is because this is where we met at the Elizabeth Foundation about 4 years ago. Dannielle had a long-time studio here, and I had just moved into a studio next to none other than Dannielle, who's sitting next to me. And perhaps one can say that that's where the seed of everything was planted. And the pandemic really brought forth our energies together. We started talking a lot more, and Hilma's Ghost was born. And so I'm going to read it's a simple mission that we read at all of our workshops, and it's really the place that we work from. Hilma's Ghost is a feminist artist collective that was co-founded by us in 2020. The collective seeks to address existing art historical gaps by cultivating a global network of women, non-binary, and trans practitioners whose work addresses spirituality. Hilma af Klint's groundbreaking exhibition at the Guggenheim in 2018 served as a reckoning for art history's blind spots, especially for women artists considered too mystical for the conservative art world. Named after af Klint, Hilma's ghost believes that Western heteropatriarchal societies maintain a false binary between spirituality and science. This bias serves to overlook women artists whose explorations of ancient and pre-modern knowledge systems is a source of personal strength and aesthetic innovation. Hilma's ghost acts as a restorative project that uplifts these voices and makes them visible.
Great, so we're gonna just give you a little bit of a run of show for today. We're gonna talk a little bit about the curatorial process, which we could say was probably in a little bit of an unusual curatorial process. And then we're gonna talk a little bit with Dylan Gauthier and Judy Guerra, some questions, and then we're actually gonna hear from some of the artists that are here just briefly before we end. So just to talk a little bit about the process of curating, I will say in the history of 20 years of hanging exhibitions, I've certainly never had an experience like this. So we laid out this exhibition, again, a really large show of 25 artists with our Abstract Futures Tarot deck. And you can find some of that information if you haven't seen it on our website and on our Instagram. It was a project that we did in the fall where we created an abstract tarot deck, obviously inspired by Hilma. So the show, I like to say, was almost divinely guided. And of course, you know, I will say that, you know, we had our concerns doing this, of course, right? When we, I mean, we really thought, well, this could really be a disaster, right? What do we do then? But I will say that, you know, we worked setting the intention of the space with Sarah. We then, for each artist, and again, working with Sarah, pulled a card out of the major arcana cards. There were serendipitously or divinely 22 artists on the walls, which was pretty amazing because those of you who know tarot know that those are 22 major arcana cards. So a card was pulled for each artist. And then you'll see that when you come into the exhibition, it is up on the walls. And then we laid out 2 spreads of where the work would go. So the show was completely, you know, laid out with the tarot, and we really stayed with completely the decisions that are made with the tarot, except for the floor pieces were the only variable in them. So that the paintings as you went around were laid out in that way. I will say what's kind of been amazing for me to see is that we both felt like, wow, we couldn't have done better. You know, in the end, there were a lot of really incredible relationships between work, and we're going to do a little walkthrough of the show for you that you'll see some of the dialogues that were created. And also I should mention that we also painted the walls, by the way, colors of like Hilma af Klint's palette. So when you come in, there's actually 4 different colors that we'll move through as we move through the show.
Yeah, I mean, even before this, you know, the works that actually are selected and come to the gallery for installation is just one part of it. I mean, there's an entire, you know, research and development phase of it, you know, through which we actually very naively, I would say, posted on our Instagram. You know, me and Dannielle were thinking, you know, of course, originally there were about 10 to 12 artists, and we doubled that, much to Dylan and Judy's chagrin, but they were very gracious in allowing us to do that, because we thought, you know, we are a community project and we want this show, we don't want to act as curators, we want to act as facilitators and bringing all these voices together for the first time in the space in this way through cosmic geometries, and thinking about abstraction, thinking about spirituality, thinking about geometries, et cetera, et cetera. And so there was an entire process involved there, but we thought, you know, we have our community, there's people we know doing this kind of work, but let's reach out beyond that and see what else is going on. And we thought maybe, you know, 2 or 3 people will whisper in our ear. We put it on our Instagram, you know, which now has, you know, 3,000 followers, and said, you know, we're curating this show. If you would like to self-nominate, or you know anybody, you know, another artist, please let us know. We put our email in there, and everything exploded, and we got like, you know, over 600 responses, to the point that we couldn't really keep up. You know, it was on our email, it was on Instagram, we were being tagged, and so it was really, really difficult to make these decisions as well.
Yeah.
You know, there are so many artists. We could have had 40 artists in the show. You know, but in the end, you know, of course, there are limitations of space, you know, of other, you know, limitations. And so, you know, this is the exhibition that, you know, we eventually created.
I'll actually just add to that too, before we get questions, that I feel like this was not because of our show. This really speaks to the time that we are in right now. I think as a society that we are coming out of 2 years where over, you know, close to 1 million people have died. And people are really, I think, hungry for a conversation about the unseen, about the spiritual, about mortality, about the connections of how we are attached to one another in many different ways. And so it really, I think, is an interesting time to kind of come to this. And the response that we got, which was shocking for us, I think just speaks to that. And for us, you know, we're not curators usually. Great empathy, by the way, for those of you curators out there. You know, we're artists, and our work is really about facilitating a community and deepening all those connections, you know, between us. So thank you for coming, and we're gonna hand it over to Dylan. I think we're gonna get some questions.
Great, thank you so much. Just to reiterate again, thanks to everyone for being here, and we will open up for questions from everyone here joining us on Zoom in just a little bit once we hear from the artists. I did want to just pick up on something you were saying earlier, and thinking a little bit about how the pandemic may have precipitated the formation of this collaboration for the two of you, because you were saying it really kind of emerged in the early days of the pandemic. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that, and maybe also how, you know, the collective is kind of like formed or reformed in this kind of very condensed, odd time frame that we're living in, that, you know, feels like Hilma's Ghost has been operating for a long time, and then you look at it, and it's, you know, kind of a relatively short period, but it's taken a few different forms. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the pandemic, you know, forced us all to really slow down in a way. And, you know, otherwise we're just kind of go, rushing. Everybody remembers those days. And, you know, I think we were also looking for deeper connections and meaning in other ways. And, you know, Dannielle and I have, of course, been friends and colleagues, but I think that was a time during which we started talking more. Dannielle was running, you know, online, you know, salons during the pandemic, called the pandemic salons, and already kind of bringing together a community online. And I myself had also run salons. So we had both done these in terms of facilitating community independently and in our own ways. And so, you know, who knows the energies that actually bring people together, but really kind of Hilma's Ghost, the collective, has really formed as an artwork in and of itself, and it's constantly evolving and shifting. If you ask me if I wanted to curate a show a year ago with 25 artists, many of them colleagues, I probably would have said no. But I just think that there's an energy here, and we keep kind of rolling with it. We had, you know, the Abstract Futures Tarot project, our first artistic collaboration that happened at the Armory last year. That was also a surprise. Carrie Secrets, the gallery who supported that project, did, you know, applied without us even knowing about it, and only told us once we were, you know, once we were accepted, and we had never made work together before that. So it really has evolved, you know, as we go on, and who knows what we're going to do next.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, it's interesting the timing of Hilma's show, and I feel like in some way that was a portal to just the opening of a conversation about, you know, spiritualism or spiritual issues in art that has really been deleted. And obviously it was incredibly, you know, that show became the most attended show in the history of the Guggenheim. And I had a conversation with Tracy Bashkoff about this, and she was really interesting to talk to because she said, you know, she was very concerned about the public, how the public would, you know, take the show. And of course, you know, as we know now, it became like, it just opened up these conversations. And I think now also we're seeing a huge uprise in interest, of course, in witchcraft and spiritual issues and so forth. And, you know, I think it's just, it has opened up these conversations, and then the pandemic has really just compiled them.
Yeah, I also want to say, just relationally, that I'd known Dannielle for 2 solid years before that, been neighbors, had lots of conversations, had no idea that Dannielle was interested in any of this. I mean, that itself was a surprise to me, and she can probably say the same about me, but it was really, I think, you know, these reveals really happened during the pandemic. I think when we were all tapping into, you know, what really helps us, you know, spiritually survive really difficult moments. I mean, what are the strategies? What are the tools that we use? And I like to think about it in those terms. I mean, we both say that we're believing skeptics. And, you know, we are having a lot of fun. We also have a few fights, you know. We stopped counting it 2, but there's maybe 4, you know, but yeah, no, I mean, in the end, it's really this community that we're growing that really makes it kind of worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, here's the tarot deck actually, where it began. So we made the drawings from these, and we drew together for about maybe 500 or 600 hours, and kind of, you can see these on our site, just pulled a few. So
it's the 78 drawings that became the tarot deck, and we actually pulled from the major arcana for this show. And when we walk around the show, you'll see the major arcana next to each work.
You'll see them installed in the exhibition. And I like what Sharmistha said about like how we search for deepening in relationships. And I think that in some way coming out or coming through the end of the pandemic, hopefully, just the act of also coming together to make collaborative work like that was very intense. I think, you know, visual artists, of course, are not trained in this. Musicians are, I think actors are. But for 2 people that, you know, we both have our independent practices, you know, it was really a transformative experience to come together in a lot of ways. And in this exhibition as well. We should maybe.
Yes.
Do you have another question?
We have very encyclopedic responses.
Yeah, we'll make it shorter.
Yeah. So
so we get to the artist.
I have a quick question for you before we move on to the next part, which would be, you know, I'm thinking a lot about with this show in terms of community and painting, and how, you know, we always kind of think of painting as this very individualized solo act. You know, it's created in the studio. The relationship between the viewer and the painting is very one-on-one, but obviously you've taken that notion and kind of flipped it on its head by sort of bringing in the divination and bringing together artists. And so I was wondering if you could speak more on what the process of bringing painting into this very communal space means and how that's changed. Obviously you started online and then you moved into the Armory event, but then here. And so what have been some of the milestones along the way, or that process? How has that felt for you as you kind of grow the Hilma's Ghost community through connections?
Thanks for the question, Judy. What are the milestones? What are our milestones? I mean, learning how to work together, I think, in this collaborative way. As Dannielle said, we're not trained as you know, artists to work collaboratively. You know, it's really been, you know, overwhelmingly about kind of solo authorship, and we both, you know, believe in that as well. I mean, we're both trained as artists. We work, you know, professionally as artists, and we have, you know, our own careers. But I think it means it's a constant process of letting go. And I think that, you know, spiritualism at its very basic, level is really about letting go, it's kind of been twisted by, socially and culturally into this thing that only mystics do and only witches do. And, there's all these people who are weirdos who are like, casting spells, but it's not true. Spirituality at its very basic level is really about letting go. And I think that's what this process is really about. And we realized that the making of the work, which we thought was going to be the hard part, was actually the most enjoyable part of all of this. I think, for two people who have very strong ideas about things and have ways of doing things, but culturally also very different, there's a lot of conversation that needs to be had, there's a lot of navigating around practical matters as well. When you're having exhibitions together, you're curating shows and you have your own independent relationships. I mean, there's a lot of practical things that go into continuing to work together. And I think that that's constant learning process and not easy.
Well, I just want to, and just to attach to the one thing that you said, Judy, is about thinking about painting as a community space. And I think that is really fascinating and something that as a professor and an artist, I think a lot about. How can we bring painting into this more expanded notion of whether we're working with one another or whether we're tapping into the spiritual world or whatever you want to believe in that. And I think that also attaches into the really notion of the mission of Hilma's Ghost, which is really about creating this community and about really kind of defining these ways that we're all connected to one another in a sense. And of course, it goes to the history of witchcraft and covens and feminism, of really kind of how we're all connected. And I love bringing painting into that space. And I think painting sometimes gets kind of the short end of the stick. We think of that as social practice or something like that. But I really believe painting can have a transgressive and political space that creates and facilitates community. Absolutely.
We have two more questions for me and Judy, and then we'll kind of open it up for the next part. And so, building on that a little bit, I wondered if you could talk a bit about the kinds of, knowing and unknowing that abstract painting in particular, maybe opens up for us, and thinking, again, in the midst of this like pandemic that just will not end, how abstraction allows us to kind of know and not know.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dylan. I don't know if we want to walk around at this point.
We'll walk around after we'll do the questions quickly. We're going to take a walk around, and then I want to invite the artists just to say something.
Well, I think that's why we have our starting point for our, I mean, there are many starting points. I mean, for me, it's the history of Tantra as well. It's South Asian textiles. There's abstraction there. For me, abstraction is also a visual kind of grammar that can be read, and so I don't think, thinking of abstraction and spirituality in twin terms is necessarily, I mean, it's over 100 years old in terms of Western modernism, certainly, and much older in other cultures and societies, which are considered pre-modern. And so I do think that, the difference is frameworking and how things are frameworked and put together. And I think that is what, again, with the help of this portal that opened up with the Hilma show, and, we were shown years ago that these are happening, being successful. It touched us, all of us, so deeply in so many ways, formally, conceptually, I mean, in so many ways. And I think that there's so many artists that were impacted by that and are also working out of that. So it just gave us a kind of centralizing point, to come together. And that's what we're really using. I think it's just the structures and the frameworks that we're creating that may feel somewhat new.
Yeah, and Dylan, just to speak on process, you talked about what is known and unknown, and I just think that that's painting in some way. In a way, like our paintings are like oracles. There are things that you know about painting. You can learn color, you can learn how to lay out a composition, but why you make a painting is because there's the unknown, right? That you go in and it reveals something. And when you do that in a community, it reveals something even more unexpected. And I will say it's, I almost think about the same way as curating. You know, there's a known of, we in our head could picture how the show would be, and we chose, you know, the pieces and carefully, but the unknown of how the layout and the magic that really happens when you lay certain pieces next to one another, or Hilma lay them next to one another. You know, that dialogue, that's the unknown that's revealed. That is really the reason why we all continue making creative things in a way.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's possible to demystify these terms as well. I mean, they've been around for so long, but you know, magic is really an energy, right? It's like these energetic connections that reveal themselves, which you may not have completely predetermined from your own conscious mind. And I think that that's also a way to look at magic and kind of to demystify. When we talk about magic, we're also talking about that kind of alchemy that happens.
Great. And then one last question here before we move on to our walkthrough and then open it up. So I am just curious a bit more about the relationships in the show between the artists. You know, for me, staring at the paperwork and these images on the computer, obviously it felt so different by the time the work showed up in the gallery, and it energizes the space. And on the side note, thank you to all the artists and galleries for being so amazing at getting work here on time and answering emails and all the forms I sent your way. Thank you so much. But I was wondering if you all could talk a bit about some of the relationships that you saw come through that were maybe unexpected, or the way the layout, you know, brought together, you know, people's work who maybe you had thought these were disparate in the show, and then they suddenly came together and were like, holy fudge, like what is that? So were there any surprises in that way?
Yeah, I think this is a good segue for us to walk around a little bit and actually show you. And if Judy and Dylan, I guess if we can keep track of the questions in the chat so we can kind of go back to them as well. So should we take the computer and?
Yeah, there is a quick question that we will answer this, that's in about the creation of the tarot. How did you choose who did which cards? So just so people understand the process of the divination, which is unusual, we took out the 22 major arcana for the works that were on the wall, right? And we worked with Sarah Potter, who's here, who's a professional witch, tarot reader. She's worked on a lot of our programs. She came with us the first day and did a lot of spell work, a lot of cleansing of the space. We really activated the cards, and we actually called upon this. We seriously tried to keep our tone serious on that. We pulled each card asking divinely for the right card to be pulled for the artist. And
so we had the cards laid, you know, we had the 22 major arcana, and then we would divine it. The card would be pulled as we were standing in front of the artist's work. And so those are the cards that are next to the artist's works. But those were just lying around and they were random at that point. But what we did is that we actually wrote down the artist's name with the card that was pulled for them. And then we cut those up into strips. And without looking at them, we taped them up on the walls. We distributed them around the gallery. So they were really not random, but they were placed without our knowledge as to what was being placed next to
hopefully
what.
A higher knowledge. And I will say that the very first, and I just want to say the painting behind us, which is this beautiful Stephen Mueller painting. And I just want to say a little bit about Stephen Mueller, who is not with us in the physical form anymore, but was hugely influential for a lot of New York abstract artists, and you know, had a very kind of intensive meditation practice and so forth. So the first card for him was the Chariot. And I thought that was hilarious because it was really about, you know, the chariot was like kind of, we're driving into this other
And if you
realm.
see this form, this symbolic form here, it almost,
it completely, you know, so echoed our card.
Yeah, I mean, there's moments where like, oh my God, I mean, there's this mirroring of forms that are happening. And, you know, now, I mean, but the pulls are as mysterious to us and revealing themselves to us. So we've left it really open to interpretation, which is very different from the curatorial practice where you really, you know, framework things in a very kind of considered way. But for us, we really want to leave those relationships up to viewers to determine, because we didn't determine them, we pull them. And we are starting to see things as well between the cards and their meanings, sometimes their forms, you know, and the works that they correspond to. And it's really kind of fascinating.
So let's go to the big part and of walking around. And let me just say that after being so sequestered with the pandemic, I just want to say a moment for how powerful it was to be around so much physical artwork.
In artists that we respect and admire.
And just like it's, you know, we've all forgotten the power of that, I feel like. And again, it goes back to like Amin, or just the idea of work being infused with presence and spirit. And just being around physical pieces was just so profound. You know, it's something that we all, I think in the past took for granted. And now that we're away from that, and I don't know if some of you have gone to the museum or something, I've had this experience, but being surrounded with this work, and it's just, you know, really been kind of amazing. So let's take a walk around. Stand up. We're walking through the space, we're all coming. So let's just say we're going to walk right in. And let me just give you a panorama here. Hey, Judy, why don't you come help us? Just to give you
there's all these colors that you see, this kind of, you know, lavender type of purple. There you go. This kind of Naples yellow. These are all from Hilma's, you know, these are Hilma-ish colors, we say, and we were really looking at her paintings, and Judy was really helpful to us in kind of determining the wall colors. So there's about 5 wall colors, I think. 5 wall colors that we eventually selected to lay out the space. And so,
and just to mention a few of the artists, this is Barbara Takanaga, Diana Garcia, Lisa Beck. You know, all these will be on the site and so forth. Let's just kind of take a walk through. And just to give you an example, this is Diana Garcia, who I don't know if she's here, is a Chicago-based artist. And this work, of course, came up as the Wheel of Fortune, which I really love because it is such a wheel of fortune. It looks, in a way, just like our card in some ways. So, and we'll just kind of continue. You could just pretend you're with us and we're at the opening and you're drinking or something. So you're drinking wine. We're at the opening. So, so this is Xylor Zane, who I'm sure many of you know.
This is one of the Magic Squares.
Amazing artist who deals a lot with numerology, numbers, precision, really cosmic person.
And interestingly, this work was actually loaned to us by Nicole Eisenman, which is kind of an interesting fact.
Yeah.
So there are other artists here in spirit with us. Here we have Yevgeniya Baras, who is a wonderful Russian-American artist. What we loved here was that it got placed next to Jackie Tileston, and they are, I believe, Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, but professor and student at one point, and they're very close. And this is something that we did not.
We didn't, you know.
Yeah, but they got placed next to each other. Jackie is a magician, and Yevgeniya got the strength card, and they are placed next to each other. So those are just things that we couldn't have possibly have planned for. And you have here another wonderful relationship. This is Biren, who is an artist who has also passed away. He was from Calcutta, but he is one of the pioneers of the Neo-Tantra movement. We have another pioneer here, Maher Mamtani, who lives in Germany and is in this Zoom room. He's, you know, in his 80s, and we're so grateful to have you here. His work is here. We managed to get it here. So it's Biren, and then you have a Neo-Tantra work, and Jackie Tileston, who is also a practitioner of Vedic traditions, and also has taken from, you know, Tantric traditions as well in terms of visualities, and, you know, those things all place together.
So we have Anne Lindbergh, another great artist. She allowed us to creatively install her work this way. Really wonderful. Evie Ryan is on the floor, wonderful kind of divine, let me see if you can see that piece. Great, wonderful, great relationships of how. I want to go to Evie Falchi, and I just want to say something about Evie that, you know, I've known Evie's work for about 15 years. I had never met her, but when I thought cosmic geometries, I immediately thought, I'm going to find Evie. And we did. I hadn't seen her in a long time, and it was just really wonderful to kind of get to know her and do a studio visit and see her work. Moving into the final room. So we have Julia Kunin, great ceramic artist, really beautiful. Sky Pape, who's also on, beautiful kind of mathematical, geometric work.
Yeah, this is Maharwan Mantani, who is here. Hello, Maharwan. We are just beyond thrilled to have your work in the show.
And we got it stretched.
And we got it stretched. We got it stretched, and it's here. And this corresponds to the Emperor, which is kind of a nice relationship. This is Laurel Sparks over here. The Hanged Man. So these are, this is kind of an interesting wall and interesting relationships that are happening here.
Yeah, and Laurel, I don't know if Laurel's on, but these are sigil paintings, so they're really infused with witchcraft and sigil making and a lot of color magic and so forth. So we have Carrie Mueller here as well. And so let's just head back into the main room. You can walk with us. I just want to say, here we have a great
Here
view.
we have the Laleh Khorramian, who I just saw logged on. Behind that, we have Johanna Nzueta's work.
We have Valerie Jaudon right here, and we're moving right past Lisa Beck's work. I think you saw the
We have Grace DeGennaro in the back here. Again, the orange on that red is something that I never would have done, but it works so beautifully, and it's such an unusual combination to have this kind of bright orange on this red background. And that corresponds to the lovers. And if you look, there's a symbol inside, which is of the dark and light, you know, the dualities. And so, again, another relationship which we could not have predetermined, but you know, the card and the painting works beautifully together.
And we'll just move, we have, this is Anoka Faruqee. We have David Driscoll.
We have Dorothy Rockburn.
One of our legends, and we loved her.
This is, you know, she's on her own. She's inspired so many countless artists.
And here's like another example of we had a question about interesting relationships, and these two pieces came in. On the right is Rico Gatson, and on the left is Marilyn Lerner. You know both of those artists, they are very different people. So really kind of fascinating just see like the relationship. Again, we didn't lay them out, like really how they echo one another.
And if you, and Rico Gatson's abstraction, of course, is kind of politicized, racialized. He uses colors that come from African flags, you know, to come up with these color schemes. But then you see it against Marilyn Lerner, who is very, you know, by Eastern, you know, really kind of inspired by Eastern traditions and uses kind of different color palettes for miniatures as well. And you see these two different cultural associations, but really kind of working really well together here. I like the fact that the Empress here, which corresponds to Rico's part, has this triangle, a sword, and you have this here as well. So those are some of the formal things that have happened. This is Natessa Amin, again, a Philadelphia-based artist, you know, again, working out of Eastern traditions, the Tantric tradition. She herself is half South Asian, and so, you know, we kind of painted a circle here to kind of mirror some of the circles and the idea of the cosmos.
The circle's the exact size of Avie's work, by the way, just so there's a lot of like, there's a mystical, mathematical, and we'll just show you an overview. We'll turn around and then you can see there's the Lisa Beck is in the middle, cosmic architecture and how the layout of the show is. But of course the show is open, so we all invite you, and we'll be doing some small openings of, you know, where we'll be doing some tiny get-togethers and so forth. But the show is open, so please come see the work. And with that, I guess, like, you know, we'll do a quick question, and then I really want to hear from the artists. Are there any quick questions on the process or anything?
I think there's a question in the chat, right?
I think we answered it.
Oh no, did you use the words to decide?
Did carry.
Oh.
We'll, let's see, I'll tell you what Valerie got.
Valerie Jaudon got the sun.
Oh, Valerie's the sun, yeah.
Valerie got the sun. And it's interesting, that's the first card we pulled. And Sarah had told us when she was doing these divination rituals that there is a kind of masculinity in the show. And you know, there's something about the masculine here. We pulled the sun, which of course is a masculine symbol. And we ended with the moon. And Julia Kunin has the moon. And so we started with the sun and we ended with the moon. And those were just from drawing from the cards.
So let's go to the artists, which are really, like, again, incredible work. We'll be doing a catalog as well, by the way, which will come out at the end of the show. We're going to shoot the show, but we will also be putting out on our Instagram of all the artists where they've answered different questions and so forth. So follow us at Hilma for that. But with that, I'm actually just going to invite the artists that are here, and I can't see you all, but if you can just take a minute and unmute yourself and just say who you are and your work and anything that comes to mind in cosmic geometries. It could be poetic, it could be anything like that. So, and just do it Quaker-like. I say Quaker-like, I say this to my students.
So I see, I'm going to call on people, and if you don't want to, don't worry about it.
Well, just like let them unmute.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then if you talk over one another, be Quakerish and don't.
Okay, well, Evie, I see you. I'm gonna, I'm not gonna be Quakerish because. Hi, Evie. I don't think you're unmuted. Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes.
Hello. The show looks terrific. It looks beautiful.
Your work looks great.
Thank you. I actually, what strikes me most is how wonderful the colored walls are in terms of framing these relationships. And I don't really know what you want to hear from me, but this it looks beautiful.
Thank you for saying hello.
Just a quick hello, and Evie has the circle wall
Sculpture, the floor sculpture. Jackie, hi.
And I'm just going to ask everyone if everyone can mute. I think Laurel is not. That's where this coming from.
Hey, Jackie.
Hi.
I think there's some sound.
Hang on 1 second.
Dylan, can you mute everyone unless they unmute themselves? Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Jackie.
Hi, we'll try this again. This is so great to do the walkthrough because I'm so happy to see the show, and I was so looking forward to meeting everybody in person because definitely these are all my people, so I can't wait. But I guess I just want to say thank you to you two for making the space for all of those of us who are thinking about these ideas and non-physical reality and what it means to be an activist and a mystic and a kind of, an artist in these times and bring them all together. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, we wish you were here, but we should say that, we're going to try to do a closing, and we're also trying to do some events with the artists that they can meet one another and so forth. And we have a lot of programming, weekly programming coming up. So we'll talk about that as well.
Maharwan. Hi, Maharwan. Are you dialing in from Germany? Oh, right. Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Well, anyway, it's good to see you. Lisa, do you want to unmute yourself and say hello?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think the process was mysterious, but the results were good, very good. And it's interesting to think about these physical works that are attempting to open a link to the unseen. So it's an interesting, contrast between these forces that we may feel or know about but can't see, and the things that we see but don't necessarily exactly describe. It's just it's a good relationship. It's a good thing to think about, and it's great to see this all together.
Great, and well, thanks everyone for trusting us, and it certainly was a mysterious process.
To us as well. To us
Up
as
to the
well.
last minute. So thank you guys thank you for your patience and forbearance.
Yeah.
with
The variables were the works on the floor. So we did have a little bit of, Hilma gave us permission to move them. Sky. Hi, Sky.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
Hey, Sky.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And Sky has black and white work in the back.
With the really
More
intricate
mathematical
lines,
work.
the very mathematical, the night sky inspires her on her walks.
Well, it's so wonderful to have the little walk through the exhibition, because so much more than just the individual pieces is, like you said, to get an idea of the relationships that start to happen between them, and kind of that energy and conversation between the different works. And it's just really an honor to be showing with so many artists whom I personally admire. So thank you. And just the introduction to other artists whose fabulous work is there, who I had not been so familiar with. So hopefully creating community and starting some new relationships. I think like geometry and patterns and these things are just so prevalent in the way that we interpret the universe through our senses and our cultures and science and what we see. And I mean, it's everywhere, all over in our everyday lives. And so it's really wonderful to sort of see it converge here in this place, in this space, in that way. And I think will open up, it just sort of creates a very special space for us to think a lot about uncertainty and perception and the unknown, and really think about that internally, but also get these conversations going, because that really enriches us all so much. So thank you.
Thanks for being in the show, Sky. And there's Deanna.
Deanna, hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. Good to be here. Welcome. Well, hi from Chicago. I won't see this in person, so it's great to be part of it.
Have lunch with us.
I guess I wanted to say I'll speak to the tarot card that you pulled. I'm not somebody who reads them often, but I love thinking about that as a power source. But the wheel in itself, like for me, certainly the idea of it being kind of a, and I like what you were talking about abstraction being a sort of a changeable, mutable thing, and it's not really fixed, and nor is it modern, and it's ancient. And but I think a lot about, in my own works, I do think about that, the constancy of the evolution of those patterns that have been with us since the beginning of material culture and human beings, and not framing it only within a modernist framework. But certainly, that the mythical circle and the sun and the eye is something that I think a lot about. So thanks for pulling that, or I should thank Hilma.
Thank Hilma. It was the perfect card for you. I love the combination of it. And it's terrific.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Deanna Guerrero-Maciá. Bye. Thank you.
Hi.
Hey, Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Hi.
How are you?
So nice to be here with you, and the show looks amazing. I mean, I'm really thrilled to be joining this community, and particularly to be joining it in an exhibition like this. And I have to say that I'm kind of blown away by the card that was pulled from my painting, because the lovers, I don't know that much about the tarot, but duality has been a major theme in my work for 25 years. So that's pretty amazing.
I mean, well, just seeing it with the black and white circle in the middle of your work, and just to remind everyone, Grace's work is the piece that was in the corner, the small orange piece
On the red
circle,
wall.
on the red wall. And yeah, it really is about duality, you know, absolutely. So I think it's, again, thank you, Hilma, perfect match. And I know you're zooming in from Maine, so we have people here from all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have an opportunity to see the show soon. So thank you so much for all your hard work, and thank you to the Elizabeth Foundation for hosting this. Yeah.
And you know, he was an artist that we didn't know. Actually, Scott, we was nominated by another artist, and you know, worked out. So
yeah. Many thanks to Sky for connecting us. Yeah. Thank you so much.
We're happy to found you.
Hi, Layla.
Hi, Laleh. Hi. So we're like teasing you out of your, you know, saying, do you want to say hello?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I unmuted. Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate this show existing and taking place, and Hilma's show for, you know, anyway, I'm not very good at this, but I think a lot of people said prior to me, said it very well, like a lot of points that I totally feel the same about. And so, yeah, I do really appreciate it. The way
Laleh's work is the hanging scroll, the beautiful hanging scroll in the space. And Laleh also lives in upstate New York, so we hope you'll come down and see the show when you can.
Oh, I do have a question though. What was my card?
Oh, yours was the world, I believe. It was the world. It's the last of the major arcana. It's the world, yeah. The last of the major arcana. So
I don't want to give you the wrong cards. It's the world.
Cool.
Confirming, yeah, which we can talk about. Excellent.
Yeah. We also want to say that there are no bad tarot cards, that the tarot is a very deep, ancient system of divination. Actually, it was playing cards that has become used divination, you know, for divinatory purposes as well. But, you know, there are no bad tarot cards. I mean, even the ones that the Tower, Death, the Devil, I mean, they all have much, much deeper meanings and resonances to them, you know. So, you know, there's...
Everyone got the card they were supposed to get.
Yeah.
That I sincerely believe, absolutely. And who are
but Julia is here, and Lindbergh is here.
Anna's having connectivity.
Oh, okay.
But if you go ahead and try.
Julia, is Julia there? I see a Laurel Marks. I don't know if that's Laurel Sparks.
No,
yeah, I'm here, but I'm not in a situation to speak so much, but it's just remarkable. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm in disguise.
It's good to see you, Julia. It's good to see you, Julia. Julia has a beautiful surrounding work corresponding with the moon. It was the last card we pulled. Anne is in the room.
Thank you so much.
Can someone read my short quotation, walk as others walk?
Walk as others walk, please.
We're getting messages from the astral realm. I'm not quite sure what that means.
And text me what you mean. And if there are any other artists on here that we have pages and pages of people, just you know, and we will share, there's 25 artists in the show. And so we will actually put it out publicly, who got what. I will say that, you know, we'll put out each card for each. It's just quite a lot of information.
Johanna is here. Hi, Johanna. Hi, Barbara. Good to see you. Natessa is here.
And
so
if any of the other artists, just go ahead and unmute yourself. I know some of you are teaching. A lot of people went back to teaching today. So
right.
If you can.
So we're saying hello to you. If you want to, do say hello. Otherwise, we will move, you know, ahead with the program.
I will share one card.
Okay. I'm saying
Hi, Barbara.
hello.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, that's all I'm saying. I noticed that I am weirdly in safe driving mode, even though I'm not driving anywhere. So, all right. Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you, Barbara. Good to see you.
Just, you know, people are asking for the cards along with the work, and we will obviously put them out. But like, for example, Dorothea Rockburn
is on a wall by herself, and she got the Hermit.
She's the Hermit. And so, really, I thought, again, perfect, of course.
And Biren there with that floating blue orb is the High Priestess, you know? So it's, and also communicating with us from the non-physical realm. And I'm also originally from Calcutta, so Biren Day of that particular generation is very important, you know, as a reference for myself.
Thank you to all of the artists.
Thank you, we love you.
We're deeply indebted to all of you. And I just want to say if there are any short, you know, we have a little time for questions.
There are a couple questions. I can queue you up. So there are two questions, one from Gabriella Monroy, who asked she said, sorry, I missed the explanation about how the show was curated. Do you mind just really quickly again, the process? How did you use the cards? Did you use them to choose what goes next to what, besides pulling cards for each artist? And then I think linked to that, Carrie Seacrest Gallery, or Carrie Seacrest, hello, asks, so interesting to allow Hilma to ask as head curator, as far as placement following major arcana, did you follow the order of how the cards normally fall, i.e. the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, etc.? So maybe you can answer those two together, if you don't mind going back to how it was curated for Gabriella. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, we want to shout out to Carrie Seacrest Gallery, who has supported our project. She and Dannielle, sorry not to speak for you, had gone to the Hilma show yeah, I did. The ventriloquist. It's one of our special spiritual capabilities. I'm just joking. But, you know, Carrie Seacrest Gallery in Chicago has, you know, Carrie Seacrest and Dannielle had gone to the Hilma show together. And Carrie has supported our project from the outset in the most generous ways, giving us an open slate.
And has underwrote all the tarot cards and all of our programming.
Our exhibition,
when, you know, and
right.
We said all the crazy program, and she said yes to everything. So, but we'll answer the question of, no, we didn't lay them out in order at all.
Actually, this kind of cool.
Yeah, we took the 20. Oop, are you there? We took the 22 cards, and again, we worked with Sarah through even a deepening of the divination. I pull cards and read tarot. But we really worked with Sarah Potter, who even made it deeper with different spell casting. Again, we cleansed the space, we activated the space, and we really asked for direction in pulling each card for each artist of the one they were really supposed to get.
And interestingly, we started, the first card we pulled was the sun, the last card we pulled was the moon.
Yeah,
again,
really
it's just, there's all this symbolism that emerges that, you know, itself becomes material for you to work with.
And to manifest it, we went from clockwise, the way you do when you want to manifest something, walking.
Yeah, I guess you can't see my phone, but what we did in terms of the process, I'd said this earlier, is that we wrote down all the artist names and the cards that had been pulled against their name. And then we folded them so we didn't know what name was written on those cards, and we distributed them around the gallery. So we had a general sense of how many works in each space, and we distributed them, we taped them to the wall, and then when we revealed them, the placement of the works was revealed, and we didn't change anything, with the exception of the floor works, which were the only, the three floor works, the two floor works, sorry, that were three, sorry, but were the only
Yeah, we
variables.
did pull cards for the floor pieces, and that's what Evie Ryan is saying, out of the rest of the deck. And so we'll send those to you.
Yeah, so yes, we did.
We did, yeah. And which was
I think
interesting.
there were all
because there's
wands as well. I think there
a
were
lot of wands,
three
yeah.
wands which are the action, the suite, which really
And I just
designate
pulled
action.
the Queen of Wands.
Right.
So
the three floor pieces, just, again, pulling from the deck, were all the fire, the wand, the action cards.
And are there any other questions? And I guess Dylan's fielding the questions, or you can put them in the chat for us, or for any of the artists.
We have a question here from Barry. I'd like to ask, what is it about mathematics that fascinates and inspires so many artists?
Well, that's interesting. That I don't want to call Sky out, but I want to say that Sky and Xylor are probably the most highly kind of mathematical artists in the show.
Well, Grace also uses the Fibonacci.
Yeah, and if any of them want to comment quickly on
Fibonacci series.
I can say a few things, but I think it might just be interesting.
Dorothea Rockburn thinks completely into an equivalence between mathematics and art. I can't say why, but there is an internal logic to mathematics and also an abstraction there as well, which I think, it provides another system. And I think artists are essentially interested in systems, right, and visual systems, and they take from different world systems that have been generated. And so mathematics, I would say, is one of those systems, certainly within the astral, the cosmic, the geometric. I mean, mathematics does come into play. So
do you want to say anything on that, or Grace?
Not to call upon you, but if you do want to.
Just to call you out.
Again.
Grace, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I'll say something brief. I think that the relationship between mathematics, or even very simple geometry and mathematics, particularly that you can find if you study sacred geometry, just relates to nature. And so nature is the original spirituality in my thinking. And so that connection between math and nature and spirituality is really, really powerful.
We'd love to hear a little bit more about the Fibonacci, because the Fibonacci series is something that you use specifically. Do you want to just say a few words about that?
Yes, the reason the Fibonacci sequence resonates so much for me is because it's an outward growth, right? It grows from the center, particularly in a spiral shell or a tree trunk. And so there's a seed, and then the growth goes outward and actually reflects the initial shape. And so for me, those kinds of forms really illustrate the passage of time. And there's really not that, to me, that's just profound. There's the idea of mnemonic growth also in sacred geometry, which is really related to that. And those are two things I think that are really universal ideas.
Thank you. Well, this is interesting. It really also goes into a lot of the ideas about sacred geometry. And I want to say that we really want to do a workshop on sacred geometry, and Carl, we are staring at you.
Carl Lorenzen, we're staring at you.
Trying to find you for
Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we've actually been like stalking you and trying to find you, and you've just appeared.
Here I am.
There.
Hello. No, I didn't want to barge in.
Well,
Yeah.
can you give us your number right now so we can write it down?
if you could just send it to
I gave
Valerie
you
to us in the chat. We would love to talk to you. And Carl, by the way, is a great artist who teaches workshops in sacred geometry that we've been trying to
We've been
get hold
stalking
of.
for 2 weeks and not been able to find, and here Hilma has delivered you to us, so.
She has.
Who delivered you to me? Who delivered? Who got you in touch with me?
Hilma.
Okay.
Hilma
Well,
did.
Okay. Thank you both for reaching out to me. I've been teaching it for 15 years, and this looks like all the cool stuff. Post-religious spirituality, kicking the man out of the sky. Yes, 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 we need that. And
But the question is, how do I find you after this session?
I'll be in touch. I'll be emailing you in touch about the specifics. And yes, I would love to teach a virtual workshop as part of this show.
Thank you. Great. And your workshops look really wonderful. So stay tuned on
I'm
all
throwing
of
our
that.
email in the chat. Please
This
do
is for
support
everyone,
us.
by the way. This is for
hilmasghost@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us. We also have our website, Hilma's Ghost, and our Instagram.
Sorry, that was unscripted. But
Sorry, that was unscripted, but we just had to get Carl before he slipped away from us again. Not again, but you know.
People involved with the esoteric tend to crawl into a cave and hello. Thank you.
So we do, like we said, we have about 5 or 10 more minutes before we have a nice way of closing. And if there are any other questions?
Sorry, Dan.
Oh.
Question from Rosa, who said, I'd like to hear Sky speak. Is Sky still on the call?
Hi, you're the sky. You're the star in the sky. So,
hi again. I was just going to say that I didn't jump in and speak about my interest in math. The person who posed the question is a mathematician friend of mine, Dr. Barry Sipra, who we have an ongoing conversation, a dialogue over the years of math and art, and a lot of things that he has said have filtered into my work in the studio. So, I think a lot about uncertainty and perception and the unknown, and I look often to disciplines beyond art, either other disciplines within art, but also disciplines beyond art, like math and science, to kind of inform me and broaden my perspective on things. And I think math is one thing that kind of puzzles through those things and starts to make those connections one thing to another, and sort of chips away at things in that way, and lets us know a little bit more about the unknown, or even lets us think about uncertainty and certainly probabilities and all sorts of things like that. And as far as dividing things or growing things, I use like these repetitions and patterns to sort of take on things, bigger things that are very maybe mysterious to me or overwhelming in a way. And working with these patterns lets me sort of think about how systems come into being, and then maybe the vulnerabilities of those systems as well, or the things that affect them, which can be things like nonconformity or corruption or whatever. I mean, with my work, it may look very perfect, and then if and when you get the chance to see it in person, there's a lot of imperfections with it, within it, or the human hand is very evident. And I think those two things really go together as well, sort of the disorder and the imperfections of things. So can I stop now?
Yes, thank you, Sky.
Thank you, Sky.
Thank you. And you were asking about your card. You're the beginning of the major arcana, and it's actually traditionally the Fool is 0, and it's not considered one of the major arcana. We call it one of the 22, but it's actually a trump card that stands on its own. And then there are 21 trump cards, which are the major arcana. Trump, not to be confused with the former president, of course.
So let's not even
the
go
trump
there.
cards in playing cards, specifically. But Sky, you were asking about your card, so that was your card.
Very
so.
important card in a lot of ways. Are there any other closing questions for us? For any of the artists or for us? You can put it in the chat or anything like that. So
I think we can start to close. So we have some way.
Let me say just a couple things before we close, just about our programming. Next week, we have Isa Carrillo, who is a great artist based in Guadalajara in Mexico, who's a great artist and a professional numerologist. So she'll be doing a Hilma's Ghost workshop on numerology, where you create your own portrait. We'll also be doing programming on sacred geometry, a panel on artists who also practice magic. We'll have mini opening get-togethers as we move through the show, and some other things. So just, you know, follow us on at Hilma's Ghost. And I just want to say, if you want to know anything about any of these artists, most of them also are on Instagram, and they are tagged. So you can follow them. You know, the gallery hours are posted and everything as well. I do want to just give a shout out to Maharwan Mamtani again, who's here, really a pioneer in, you know, neo-tantra painting, and really wonderful. And please, you know, Google him. He's not on Instagram.
He's on Instagram. He's very active on Instagram.
Yeah,
that's how we found him. And
so
you know, we love
you can connect to most of these artists, and also find out about, we have a few deceased artists, you know, like Stephen Mueller and so forth. So with that, we have a nice way of closing, and I'm going to hand it over to Sharmistha. We close all of our Hilma's Ghost programs like this. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who came, and our, you know, amazing artists, and we hope to see you.
Come see the show. The most important thing is the show. Please come and see it. It's open 12 to 6, Wednesdays through Saturdays. Tomorrow is the official opening day, and it runs until February 26th. We're hoping to do a closing as well. Our programs that Dannielle was talking about will happen at this time, Thursdays, every week, 3 to 4:30, and you can follow it on Instagram at Hilma's Ghost if you'd like to attend. And I will close.
We also, I should say that, you know, Hilma's Ghost will be doing some exhibitions together, and a show at Carrie Seacrest Gallery, collaborative paintings in May, and some other events and so forth that we'll be announcing.
Also, yeah, and thank you. And thank you
to everybody for coming.
But don't leave yet. We have a very nice way of closing. This is a good part. We honor your spirit, your agency, the power you have invested in the cause of art. It is because of you that we find our inner strength, and we use it purposefully for ourselves and the cause of feminism, for generations of women, non-binary, and trans practitioners of all races, ethnicities, and other markings, past, present, and future. We, the guardians of the divine feminine and her eternal spirit, endeavor to smash the patriarchy and build in its place a true and inclusive utopia, and that can hold and honor us all, our creation, our sense of self, and our spirit for the cause of artistic freedom. And this is to our ancestors, artistic ancestors. Deceased artists, Hilma af Klint, died 1944, Sweden. Edel Adnan, died 2021, Paris. Olga Frobe Kaptein, died 1962, Switzerland. Zarina, died 2020, New York. Anna Mendieta, died 1985, San Francisco. Eva Hessa, died 1970, New York. Agnes Pelton, died 1961, California. Shirin Aliabadi, died 2018, Tehran, Iran. Died 2014, Vienna, Austria. Nazreen Mohammadi, died 1990, Karachi, Pakistan. Charmian von Wiegand, died 1983, New York. Luchita Hurtado, died 2020, California. And with that, I hand it back to Dylan and Judy if they want to make any closing remarks.
So much for joining us again today. And Dannielle and Sharmistha, thank you. It's really a fabulous pleasure to have your show and presence and Hilma's presence at Project Space. So yes, please everyone come and visit. We have open hours Wednesday through Saturday, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., 323 West 39th Street on the west side of Manhattan, the Garment District. And you do not need a reservation. You do need a mask and a vaccination proof, and we are open. We'll be having a catalog release at the close of the show, and events that we'll be publicizing through the website and social media. So please, yeah, follow us on Instagram, visit our website, and do come visit. Thank you all again for joining us this afternoon, and we'll see you here at Project Space and out there in the astral plane.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming. We'll be here on Thursdays.
Come and see the show, Pablo. Hi, Natessa. Good to see you, Meghna. It's good to see so many friends in the room and colleagues.